Does George Pickens want out? This is something we've been kicking around for, I don't know, a couple weeks now. And now he's acting a little funny on Instagram and posting a photo of him and Tom Brady. And you could say, oh, he just loves Tom Brady. But this is a man that's watching everybody else get paid around him. And if you watch his Instagram and social media activity, he's posting nothing but wins. Anybody that signs a big deal that he's at association with, he'll post on Instagram and put sleeping, big win, money bag. He's watching right now, and his actions to me, and this is why I went to school, for moments like this to break down the psychology of these players. And George Pickens, in my assessment, is brewing. His mind is turning, and he's saying to himself, I want out. And I very much believe there is not a world I can imagine where George Pickens does not request a trade. There is not a world where this man watches every other player, all of his friends, get paid, and watches an incoming player come and take his job. And DK Metcalf is the number one in Pittsburgh. Don't get it twisted up. If you think DK Metcalf's not the number one, why did they trade for him and pay him $33 million per year? That's what I thought. George Pickens is not happy. I believe this is a ticking time bomb. This is one of the biggest diva wide receivers and, in my opinion, head case wide receivers in the league. You think he's going to sit back and watch DK Metcalf get $33 million per year? His biggest complaint is not getting the football. He has no quarterback, technically speaking. We're awaiting Aaron Rodgers, and I still believe he's more inching toward Pittsburgh than he is Minnesota. But people keep running the Minnesota thing out there. Not saying it can't happen, but everybody's got a little guesswork game, educated guessing going on. Who's going to guess right and look like they've got a source? There's nothing out there on this. Nobody knows what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. No one can find the man. He's walking the beaches right now, probably on a different beach right now, listening to his wired-in headphones. Who has wired-in headphones? Aaron Rodgers has wired-in headphones, and he's out there listening to whatever, sweat lodge music he jams to, while this man's complaining internally about to make everyone realize he's about to request a trade. That's my opinion. That's my guess. I have no inside sources on this. This is just straight up logic. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
Studios. It's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
So this was 5 hours ago on Instagram, on George Pickens' stories. He posted this of him and Tom Brady. And then, he posted some other free agency wins. Pretty much everything he's discussing and talking about and posting is either not Steeler related, other quarterbacks. I know he didn't post a Geno picture, but you got to wonder, is Tom Brady talking to this man? Is there potentially some sort of advice being given to George Pickens? Why is he posting this right now? Why, out of all photos, right now in the middle of free agency, interlaced between different free agency posts and wins from his friends that are getting the bag right now? That's his behavior on IG. I've been looking at it. I've been monitoring it. I've been studying like a student of the IG game, looking at his posts, and this is all he's talking about, is money and big wins. You tell me what world this diva wide receiver who wants the ball, probably his biggest complaint, gets DK Metcalf handed to him, and DK shows him a check for $33 million per year. You tell me what world this diva wide receiver stays quiet. There's no world. You know why? Because if he gets traded, he immediately gets an extension. That's the way the NFL works. If you get traded, then the incoming team, the receiving team, who gave up draft capital, will not do the trade unless a contract is announced side by side in parallel. Meaning, all he's got to do to get let's call it 27, 28 million, because he's not DK. He's not DK Metcalf. He's not getting 33 million a year. But could he get 30? Sure. Would New England overpay? Yeah. Would the Raiders overpay? Maybe. But let's call it $28 million per year. If he gets traded, he gets $28 million per year. If he doesn't get $28 million per year. You tell me what path Pickens is going to choose. You try and predict and forecast this. I feel like this is easy. If it doesn't happen, my mind will be blown. I'm not going to be that surprised because this is the NFL. This is the same NFL where not one single team tried to acquire Lamar Jackson with a 2-draft tender. Not one team attempted to go get Lamar Jackson at the cost of 2 future first-rounders. Not one team. This is a wild league. I'm not pretending to understand what these GMs do. I don't think these GMs know what they're doing half the time. I don't think these teams have a, from top to bottom, knowledgeable base of football minds that can do the things that are needed to be done to build a championship team. I don't. So I don't pretend to think I have all the answers. I'm just telling you the logic here. And if I'm Pickens, I'm getting the hell out. And if I'm Pickens, I'm creating such a stink that I'm getting a contract extension at least, or I'm getting the hell out. I'm getting traded. And look, he didn't deliver last year. You brought in DK Metcalf. You'd be very tempted if the price was right. If New England sent you the right draft pick, if the Raiders sent you the right draft pick, you're dumping Pickens as quickly as you can because you didn't pay him. Think about this. For those of you saying, no, they like him, they want to give him a chance, then why doesn't he have a contract? When a player's in a contract year, ladies and gentlemen, they get the bag. Understand what I'm saying. Pickens would get extended if the Steelers believed in him. He's in a contract year. They would have paid him and not DK Metcalf. The mere fact that the Steelers didn't pay George Pickens, the mere fact that he's in a contract year and they could lose him outright next offseason, and you can say, oh, but they could franchise tag. They're not going to franchise tag him. They clearly don't think he's worth that, or they just pay him now. Now, maybe he goes out, blows up, and then they come in and franchise tag him with the regret. We should have signed him. Let's tag him and work out a deal. But that's a whole nother scenario. That's this man keeping his head on straight. That's DK Metcalf not digging into his workload. This man's biggest beef and crying complaint is not getting the ball. DK comes in. They've got no quarterback. You tell me. You tell me. Is he waiting to see if Aaron Rodgers comes? Is he waiting to see if Aaron Rodgers comes so that he can at least decide, hey, maybe I'll complain but try and get an extension? Or maybe if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come in, it's Russell Wilson again, and DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson are the ones that are going to be throwing football like they're in the backyard again, like two best friends that anybody could have. Then all of a sudden, you got George Pickens going, I'm out. Deuces. I am out of this thing. I don't want to play with Russell Wilson again. And I certainly don't want to play with Russell Wilson playing catch with his best friend DK Metcalf while he makes $33 million per year, making 30 times what I make. George Pickens is waiting. The diva that is George Pickens is waiting. The question is, where do we want him to go from a fantasy perspective? Is the Raiders situation solid? I suppose it's okay. He'd be the number one. I'm not the biggest Jacoby Myers fan. I know there's a lot of Jacoby Myers people out there. I think he'd easily be the one in LV, and Geno would connect with them. I don't know that he goes up from his current value if he was in Pittsburgh alone and DK was never traded. I don't think he surpasses that value, but I think he's a borderline top 15 to 20 wide receiver. I think he's a borderline, maybe mid wide receiver 2. I don't think he's got a shot in hell in LV being an elite wide receiver 1. Could he touch the 12, 13, 14 overall wide receiver territory in LV? Maybe. I wouldn't rule it out. In New England, if he got the bag, Drake May throwing to George Pickens, this could be a thought. Could George Pickens be traded in a deal that includes Joe Milton? And Travis and I and a few others have kicked that around in phone conversations, and that would be something that would be a pretty solid move. New England gets George Pickens. There's obviously more draft capital involved in that. And Joe Milton's a small piece, but then the Pittsburgh Steelers get Joe Milton, and now you've got a starting quarterback, and you've got Joe Milton in a starting role, which is what we want. Do we want him somewhere else starting? Probably, but I'd rather have Joe Milton starting in Pittsburgh than backing up Drake May and wasting away his talents and just burning the years off of his contract, burning the years and losing the edge. You sit on the bench for 2, 3, 4 years, you can lose that edge. I don't want that. I want Joe Milton somewhere starting. So a trade could brew between the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. A trade could brew between the Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Raiders maybe figure out a way to trade, I don't know, a player like, I don't even know where to begin. You could say Michael Mayer, but they kind of have the tight end position covered. But that would be a good player in an acquisition to get from the Raiders if you were involved in this type of discussion from any team standpoint. But yeah, Pickens is in my opinion as good as revolting very, very soon. He just might be awaiting the Aaron Rodgers news, to know how much he might want to fight for putting up that stink but wanting the contract in Pittsburgh versus, hey, my stink is going to be out getting me the hell out of Dodge, because you don't have a quarterback. You're bringing Russell Wilson in. What if it's Jameis Winston? What if it's some undisclosed rookie right now? There's a lot of reasons. If you're George Pickens, you are kind of waiting right now. You've got a little time before the draft, and that's the important landmark of when you need to get out of Dodge to get that bag is before the NFL draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to be interested in 2026 draft capital. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not interested in trading George Pickens after the NFL draft. Any team willing to acquire, trade, that's why it's so hard to get rid of Ayuk, right? They were trying to get rid of Ayuk last second. They couldn't prepare. The contract numbers couldn't line up because the Niners sat on their hands and screwed it up. And then A.J. Brown's extension got announced 12 minutes before the NFL draft kicked off, which screwed up Ayuk's market value again. And so the Eagles played 5D chess on the Niners twice in the NFL draft. First with that announcement, which screwed up the whole wide receiver market during the draft, where that's when you're trying to trade Ayuk. And then they took Cooper DeJean and stole him from the Niners, who should have drafted him. Like, the Eagles are just, they're playing 5D chess at all times. Howie Roseman knows what in the hell he's doing. I do think that the Steelers do have an amazing commander at the helm. And I think that you're going to potentially see this GM maneuver a nice move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think Khan's going to do anything that's going to be devastating for the Steelers in terms of trading Pickens away for nothing. I think they will get something that they feel very good about. I don't know if they get a second rounder for Pickens. I don't know if they could get more. I don't know if they'd have to get less. And it's hard to know what Pickens' market value is. I would imagine that you're probably trying to get a 1 and everyone's going to laugh at you. Maybe you get it done. Maybe maybe a team that's drafting, late in the first round tries to do something, but those teams are usually winning teams that don't necessarily need this kind of move to begin with. But if you're talking about a second rounder and Joe Milton going to the Pittsburgh Steelers for Pickens, now you're talking. There's something to discuss there. So, let's see here. John, let's go through these super chats real quick and we'll open the phone lines. I'll get to the news, then open the phone lines. How do we feel about MHJ and Dynasty going into 2025? We like him a lot. He's a third rounder right now in redraft and Dynasty. He might climb into the bottom of 2 in Dynasty startups. It's kind of hard to really say. It depends who you're drafting with, how astute they are. Are they wide receiver heavy? Is it full PPR, half PPR? But I'd say that that's a good value. That packages in and bakes in a lot of the risk involved in a drafting of MHJ. I still believe in MHJ. I still think he's a top 5 wide receiver talent. I just don't know if his situation's conducive with that kind of production right away in his second year, but I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that the Cardinals decide to game plan a little more. When you look at what MHJ ended up producing at the end of the year, was a pretty darn good season. Considering not comparative to a guy like BTJ, but when you look at his season, he had a string of good games. We're talking about MHJ, so let me put that on the screen. MHJ had a string of good games. There's definitely some potential. He had those monster games back to back. I can even pull up his game log, and we can go over Marvin Harrison Jr. game log. Let's go through it real quickly. So he had 62 receptions for 885 and 8 touchdowns. I think when you have 8 touchdowns as a rookie, it's a pretty good sign and indicator that the sky's the limit for you, especially if you still believe in the player and the talent, and I certainly do. This is his receiving total last year. Again, not what we wanted. It's not BTJ-like, but it's a damn good number. 8 touchdowns to go off of when you know he was trapped in an abyss, in a unraveling of an offense and an attack, and a Cardinal team that just felt lost all season long. And when you look at his game log, at the end of the year, I think he finished his final game with a touchdown and 63 yards. He had 10 targets the second to last game for 9. So, like, this being his final 2 games is promising, in my opinion. You look at his final 2 games, and I'll go and touch on his first handful of games where he was really good. So he kind of started off good, ended pretty good, and then we had a bunch of mediocrity kind of laced in between. But these are his final 2 games. He had this 5 receptions, 63 yards, and a touchdown in his final game. 6 receptions for 96 yards in his second to last game. It's a very good note, to finish off as. But then when you look at his beginning, his first 4 games, and keep in mind he had a really, really bad week number 1 where everybody panicked. So really we're looking at, after week 1, dropping loads on the field for 3 consecutive games. The bottom game is week 1 against the Buffalo Bills. The left column is his reception total, and this column right here is his targets. So he had 1 for 4 yards. The next game, 4 for 130 and 2, and that pretty much was in one half. 5 for 64 and 1, 5 for 45 and 1. He started off looking every bit the player we thought he was going to be. MHJ is a solid bet to be a total sophomore explosion. Third round value accounts for exactly the amount of risk I think that's present. So great value. I don't know if it's the best value in the draft, but it's certainly good value. It's got a lot of the risk baked in. This one here from Justin says, I really can't see KOC wanting Rodgers. Every relationship between Aaron Rodgers and a head coach has gone south in a very one of us is going to get fired way, says Justin. I mean, that's kind of why a lot of people, they use their own logic. But bro, this is the NFL, man. We can't see it. Sometimes I gotta back myself, up and say, Smitty, just because you think it doesn't mean the other teams do. And I catch myself as much as I can on that, just to preface it. Like, this is my logic that Pickens is going to get traded, that Pickens will want to get traded, that Pickens will demand to get traded, especially with his, head case mentality that we're constantly concerned about getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he's a diva. He's one of the biggest diva receivers in the league, and Pittsburgh seems to produce these guys. But doesn't mean it's going to happen. Logic does not always happen. My Lamar Jackson situation example is probably the biggest case of I don't understand the NFL that you could ever find. That Lamar Jackson, this golden boy that everybody loves, but they didn't love him when he was franchise tagged, and you're able to get him for 2 first rounders. And don't tell me everybody didn't want to set the market and contract value that the Ravens just would have matched it. The Ravens wouldn't have matched it. They were struggling to pay him, and they didn't know what to give him. You could have came in over the top, overpaid him, and you would have got Lamar Jackson and surrendered those 2 first rounders. So I don't want to hear it. But as for this, Aaron Rodgers, if we're thinking, logically here, Justin, I think no team should be taking on Aaron Rodgers the way he can be toxic to the environment, except for, I think, Pittsburgh. Because I think Pittsburgh, he's not going to get away with any of that. And I think he needs to be reined in again. I think he needs to be kind of held in a box and said, look, this is your job. That's it. And I think that he'll be more successful doing that. I'm a Pats fan. Jacoby is very mediocre in the fantasy world. Slot guy, never had a good QB, wasn't on the field when Brady was here. Love him though. Everybody loves Jacoby Myers. I understand why, but most of the crazy fandom for a player, when you say, like, whenever, think back to Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller buzz was through the roof in the offseason last year. Kamara, he's going to fall off. He's old. He's going to, and we did have concerns about Kamara a little bit last year. We loved him the year prior. We liked him last year. He had a good value, and I even like him a little bit this year still, even though he's older. Ziggy, how old is Alvin Kamara?
Alvin Kamara is 29 years old.
Turns
25th, 1990.
Turns 30 in July, so enters 30 years old this season. 29 was his season last year, but we still like him. But keep in mind that Kendre Miller, he'd proven nothing. There was nothing Kendre Miller brought to the table that should have made you say, Kendre is going to the moon. He's amazing. And everybody was on board. Why? You got to ask the question why, because so many people have owned this guy. He's sitting there on 10% of all fantasy league benches, right? And he's just sitting there. And when you account for people who have multiple leagues, really, instead of saying, 1 out of 12, owners out there likes Kendre Miller, right? Because 1 out of 12 owners in a dynasty owns him. So 1 out of 12 people, if 12 people go into a live stream, is going to go, Kendre to the moon. It's the natural way of the order of things. But when you account for people having 3 and 4 or 5 dynasty leagues, maybe more like 20%, 15% of people have Kendre Miller somewhere. So it's exciting to get behind a player that's rising up, maybe. And look how bad Kendre Miller was. I'm not saying Jacoby Myers hasn't proven more in the NFL than Kendre Miller. Clearly he has. But this overhyped, Jacoby Myers, I don't know. We'll see. This one's from BBQ, says, George Pickens is a cancer, a team destroyer. He did it in the last year locker room fracture because of George Pickens. He held his team hostage, 5 games losing streak, bounced in the playoffs. No head coach would allow this, but MT trade this child or suffer the meltdown, says BBQ. And yeah, I'm not saying thank you for the $20 hauler. That's a $20 hauler right there. $20 hauler.
Alert. Super chat alert.
$20 super chat. $20 super chat.
Alert. Super chat alert.
$20 hauler, you get a pump in. Yeah, George Pickens. I don't know. Dial into the phone line.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
By the way, this is a message I got from Denny. I mean, you leave a voicemail on the voicemail show, you're gonna have it played. So,
no, you're right, Smitty. Birdie sucks. You're right. I saw it the other day. I watched the old shows. That Purdy sucks. So I'm on your side on that one. All right. I'll talk to you later. Oh, I don't know. Purdy sucks.
still there. He's still there. He's still that. That's Denny. Denny, amazing.
Let's go, mashed potatoes.
Yeah, buddy.
You outdid yourself, Denny. You outdid yourself. Probably the best voicemail we've got so far. Who here thinks George Pickens is not getting traded? And then who here thinks he's going to request it, though? Or let's back it up. Who here thinks that George Pickens holdout, trade complaining tirade is coming? Whether he gets traded or not, that's like a whole nother, level of this that it's hard to predict. It truly is. But raise your hand, thumb up emoji, whatever, to indicate that you believe that George Pickens will start creating havoc. And then we'll discuss on the phone line the likelihood of it, where he could go, et cetera, et cetera. Who knows if someone wants him, bro? Believe me, he's going to gain interest. There's going to be at least 2 or 3 or 4 desperate teams. Even Travis has said, and we can put Travis here on the phone line here first. Even Travis has said, Travis knows he's a diva. Travis probably thinks he's most capable of imploding, wide receiver in the National Football League. But even Travis said he'd take him. So I know that teams will go get him because they need a receiver bad. And let's be honest here. He is one of the more talented wide receivers in the league. He really is. Like, he's in the top 12. It's the biggest discrepancy you've ever seen. Maybe he's even 8 to 12 from a physical perspective. He's got that kind of talent. But he doesn't play anywhere near that. It's the biggest discrepancy out there. It's hard to admit that because you look at the production and you say, oh, you can't call that guy a top 10 wide receiver talent-wise. It's very uncomfortable to say that. But if you're trying to evaluate someone's physical abilities, Josh Gordon, there are tons of players that had the physical talent. Johnny Manziel, it doesn't mean that you're going to evolve at the National Football League level. So we've got to very much understand that. AR5, cannon, but there's more to the quarterback position than having a strong arm, ability to run, and all of that. But George Pickens is very much in that same situation where we're trying to look at his upside. We're trying to project how well he can mature mentally, physically, mesh with the quarterback, get along with a team, have longevity with the team. Players that venture all around like transients don't end up having successful, elite careers. They're players that have moved around that have been good, but George needs to establish himself somewhere and stay there. And maybe he needs to go somewhere else because DK Metcalf will probably haunt him the rest of his career. If he signed an extension even in Pittsburgh, he's not going to be happy. He'll get his bag. And he's the kind of player that if he gets $28 million per year and he's unhappy, he'll just shut down. Like, he may not complain anymore, but he's not going to try anymore. He's going to get his bag. He's going to go out there and play football, have fun, do the best he can. But if George isn't complaining, not getting the ball after you pay him, that means he's shutting down. And you need him somewhere where he's the number one. He needs to feel like the alpha. DK's the alpha. This guy isn't the alpha. Travis, you would still, at this moment in time, admittedly, you believe that Pickens is a head case and a ticking time bomb, but you have even said yourself, have you changed your mind, that Pickens, you would gladly take him on the New England Patriots?
Yeah, in a second, especially with the situation the Patriots have. Beggars can't be choosers, but like you said, other teams that don't even have, problems with wide receiver or just looking to upgrade will still take him because if you think about it, he hasn't been getting arrested and crashing cars and doing anything crazy or using his girlfriend or, if he doesn't even really have strike zones like teams view.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Would you rather have a guy, is Tyreek Hill a better player than, from a locker room and staying out of trouble? Is Tyreek Hill even, is this guy doing better than Tyreek Hill? Adrian Peterson, was in some trouble. There are a lot of players that have been in trouble. This guy's never been in trouble. He's just a head case. But I don't know. That's it's still bad though. To be considered a locker room destroyer. But yeah, if you're the New England Patriots, you got to develop Drake May. That's the most important thing. And you pay this man $28 million a year. And I'm not saying that any one of us wouldn't be elated to get even 1/10 of that, for a paycheck. We're not trying to say 28 is not a lot, but $28 million per year is going to look like chump change 3 years from now. So you might as well go get this wide receiver who's got enough doubt and concern wrapped around him that he's actually affordable in today's wide receiver climate. Because it seems like the Devonta Adams deal kind of helped pull the Godwin taking $5 million less than he could have got from New England. New England would have paid him up to $30 million like I predicted him to get. And that was crazy that Godwin passed up that money. But Godwin passing up that money changed the market a little bit. And so there's not the $33 million DK deal. That's what he'd expect in Pittsburgh. But I think that reality would set in if he's going, let's say, to New England or LV, and they're like, we'll give you $28 million. He's going to say okay, even if it's not 30, because he's not getting that now, and he's going to go, screw it. I don't need to be 5th or 6th or 7th highest paid wide receiver. I'm going to get this guaranteed money right now. I need to jump on it. Right now, I'm playing second fiddle and my team's not going to pay me. They just paid DK 33. There's no way the Steelers are paying another wide receiver. That's why he's going to be a free agent next year. Like, that's the thing people don't understand is they think, well, Pittsburgh doesn't need to trade him. Pittsburgh wants to trade him. Why would they not? If they brought in DK in a trade and paid DK $33 million a year and they refuse to pay him in a contract year, what message do you think that's sending? They clearly don't want to extend him. And the proof in what the Steelers did with Najee last year, not picking up his fifth-year option, and then even off of a good year, letting him go, the Steelers are making the decision now to let George Pickens go next year. They're not going to franchise tag him unless he goes out there and blows up the league. And then they say, okay, yeah, we made a mistake. Let's franchise tag him and ink him to a deal. But that's the only scenario. He's good as gone. So if you're the Steelers, you got to get rid of him now. They're more interested in trading him than George Pickens is probably interested in being traded. They just need the right trade partner. And I think they're letting the offers come to them. If they say, "Oh, we need to trade him," that could be part of their posturing. And we've got a lot of time before the NFL draft, so there's still a lot of negotiation and ways to kind of trickle this out there. But this picture right here, I mean, I'm not saying we can draw too many conclusions from this, but it certainly is weird that the Raiders A need a receiver, B he's posting things about other quarterbacks. C, he doesn't have a quarterback. D, he's really weirdly quiet right now. There doesn't make sense. He's doing something. The calm before the storm. Why aren't we hearing anything from George Pickens? Like, what's he thinking about right now? It's not, oh, this is great. You're so excited, my buddy DK Metcalf got the bag. Does anybody know, and I'm not sure, does anybody know if he posted congrats to DK on his IG stories? And because he's posting wins on free agency. Ojulari for the Eagles, he just signed and he posted, sleeping on him, got his bag, congrats. Does anybody know if he posted anything? When DK came, I don't know that he did. Did he? He may have.
I was gonna say if I was a Raiders, I'd offer Jacoby Myers in a pick. Pickens right now.
Yeah, I could see Myers getting.
Steelers might do it. Myers is a perfect wide receiver too.
Yeah, that's where he belongs. I like him there. I like him in Pittsburgh as the 2. That would be okay. I mean, I like him in LV as the 2. If let's say Pickens were to go in, because he is a 2. He's not a 1. Jacoby Myers is not a 1. He's trying to think of another player that. It's the hype is just. I think people just want it so badly because they own him. But we'll see. I don't think he said anything. I think there was something about there was like a comment somewhere about jersey number, or, whereas I forget what it was. It was something like very civil that he said about it. I think in a Instagram post or a tweet or something like that. I forget. I'll have to find it. But it's not like he congratulated him on his stories like he's congratulating a lot of other players when they get the bag. I mean, he's bag watching. He's out there with the binoculars, like he's bird watching. He's bag watching, and when bags get dropped, he congratulates people. Like, you think he's not trying to get a bag right now? Oh, that looks good. Oh, that's a big one over there. I'm not interested in that. I'm not. He gets traded, Travis. He gets paid. That's how trades and contracts work in the NFL. You get traded, you get paid in parallel. There's no trade. If let's say Pickens said, I don't want to sign a long-term deal with the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns made an offer to the Steelers, if he said, I'm not signing a long-term deal, the Browns would call the trade off. Like, no one just does that trade without the extension with a receiver like this. You wouldn't give up the capital without the long-term commitment. So him getting out guarantees him to get millions upon millions of dollars per year. He gets $25 to $28 million per year. Probably a guarantee of $50 to $60 million is spitballing a number. You get $50 million plus guaranteed if you make a stink and get traded. Who's not making a stink and getting traded, especially when you have no quarterback and you just got replaced. Like, what are people talking? How is this not easy to see coming? And again, I could be wrong, and I'm not saying there's not even a 30% chance I'm wrong here, because logic does not always play in. But how is this not the world that everyone else is living in when they look at this? And how is this not the world he's living in? We'll see.
I think he's a pretty good candidate for a draft day trade.
Mm-hmm.
See that happening for sure.
And he might have been,
AJ Brown when he got dealt. That they're good pieces to use to move up in a draft or swap, and those things happen quite a bit.
And he's definitely. Matthew says no team is signing Pickens. He's awful. You're hearing from a Patriot fan right now who's admitting that he's a head case, but he'd take him in a millisecond. Look, Matthew, I get you, but you're wrong. A team will take him. I promise you that. Will they pay him what he wants? Maybe not, but we'll have to see on that. But I think a draft day trade could be in the cards, because what a team's going to do a lot of times is they want to see who's available, and then when they're available, then they strike. And a lot of times these players take physicals. Somehow they keep it quiet, which is crazy. But they take physicals and everything's set up, and then the trade gets executed on draft day, and it's like this was worked out ahead of time, and it's like, wow, how'd you do that without anybody knowing it? But George Pickens could get traded on draft day, and the team the Steelers and Khan could have said, hey, don't make a stink about this, because it's weird that he's not making a mess of it, right? Like everything about George Pickens as we know it would say he's going to get crazy right now, and he's just sitting there calmly. What would explain that? And this is just a guess, that they said to him, hey, be quiet, we're trying to trade you. This is going to help us trade you if we don't look desperate to get rid of you. And then Pickens is like, okay, I'm going to give you until this deadline, but I'm going to stay quiet for now. That seems logical. Why he's not made a stink about anything.
Could have been taking his physical with the Raiders. That's why he's standing next to Brady.
I don't know how old this is. I imagine this is not
I don't know when the picture's from.
A recent photo. Okay. Unless they're announcing something soon, I can't imagine. But he's still got to probably request a trade for a team to even talk to him. So this doesn't make sense that it would be recent. But you never know. He could be like, me and Brady are friends. You can't stop me from hanging out with Brady. He's not a coach. He's not. I don't know. Who knows? We'll find out maybe more on this one. But let's see. Justin, you're live.
Yeah, I'm a Pats fan, and I'd want George Pickens in a second, dude. Because I just feel like there's so few wide receivers that enter the open market as a free agent and are actually to that caliber of player. I'm not saying he's a leader or anything, but even a top 20-ish or top 30-ish guy, they just don't enter the open market like they used to anymore.
BBQ says he'll pay for the moving truck. I don't blame you for wanting him, and again, BBQ's from a different angle than you are coming from, because George, Debo in San Francisco, is a very good example. Debo, if he was never moved, he probably would have had a bad year in San Francisco. He wouldn't have been motivated. He'd be disappointed. The fan base is going at him. He can't really get his confidence fully back because he's got a lot of negativity. It's kind of like when a person gets divorced and they got to get out of the house they were in. All the memories are he can't. How's Debo gonna get there? So Debo now has the greatest chance of having a big year, new situation, remotivated. He's excited. George Pickens, in his current situation, especially with DK now in town and getting $33 million a year and all the negativity being wrapped up around Pickens, I don't think he can succeed here at all. I don't think there's a chance in hell. But if you do take him, and so I understand where BBQ is coming from, get him out of here. You do take him and put him over in New England as the one, you pay him, it's going to reset his happiness and his motivation and everything for a while. I'm not saying he doesn't become a problem 3 or 4 years from now, but at least in year 1, 2, maybe 3, it's the best version and well-behaved. And as Travis said, he doesn't get in trouble off the field. It would be the most well-behaved Pickens you could find. And maybe that would be a very good George Pickens for 2 or 3 years. So he's kind of in that dangerous territory of getting lost in the the whirlpool that's going to drag him down, and he just needs to break free from it. And if he does, he'll be pretty productive. Like I said, talent-wise, he's amazing. If he goes to New England and is the number one wide receiver for Drake May, he could produce like wide receiver 15 numbers in fantasy. You know, I'm not saying for 5 straight years or be consistently an amazing wide receiver, but he could be one of those guys that has 2 or 3 years out of 5 or 6 that are top 15.
Oh, and not, I'm not saying just with New England, with any team. If sometimes these guys, if they find success and become secure in their spot, then, you know, they get comfortable, realize, okay, I'm good here. Then you don't have so many more problems. I'm not saying that's going to happen with him in New England or anywhere else, but, you know, there's a chance of that too, where, you know, guys get older and get secure in their spot and they're okay. You know, Chris Carter had drinking problems and all types of issues. Michael Irvin had issues, and, you know, people mature too. So, you know, a change of scenery might fix that, change of scenery in a contract.
Yeah. Just in kind of in non-factor news, Packers signed free agent wide receiver Mecole Hardman. Cooper Kupp was contacted by Dak Prescott on CeeDee Lamb before he decided to go to Seattle as a attempt to lure him into Dallas. Dallas would have been a good spot, but I'm glad that JSN has a counterpart. I'm glad JSN has somebody that's going to keep defenses honest, so I'm not disappointed in that. It just would have been interesting. The Brady and Pickens situation. There's a couple other pieces of news here that I was going to throw up. It looks like BBQ dropping 50 gifted memberships. BBQ. $50. Give me 50. Thank BBQ for the gifted membership. If you got one, please. He's dropping them like candy right now in the chat. Here's another piece of news. This coming from, I believe this is an ESPN writer, right? Josina Anderson. Worth noting, one league source told me earlier today that the Steelers feel like they're getting closer on their quarterback situation. In their mind, that optimism pertained to Aaron Rodgers. So I still think Pittsburgh is the place for Aaron Rodgers. I still think that's the most likely landing spot. I do think that Pittsburgh being so quiet right now is them waiting on bated breath for Aaron Rodgers' decision. We keep hearing out of the Athletic, you know, and people that work for the Athletic that the Minnesota Vikings are still in play. And people have picked up on that. And now you're hearing independent reports that are not Athletic related, but they're still talking off of that Athletic report. And Diana Rossini even said as of yesterday that there have been no offers or any really serious talks from Minnesota to Aaron Rodgers. They've been kicking the idea around and deciding what they want to do with their QB room. It's like, that's so where are you getting any of this Minnesota stuff from? Like, where's any of it coming from? If Diana Rossini, the originator of the Minnesota Viking, and this is why I was so hard on this report the other day. You know, I'm not saying that Diana Rossini is a bad reporter or anything like that, but like I said, when's the last time she broke something first? Does anybody know? And so for this whole thing to be based on no offers been made, it's not really like all that serious a conversation from Minnesota. And everybody kicks around Minnesota right now. You know, not just out of like, it would be good. I wonder if he follow in Favre's footsteps. Like, we've all done that for months and months and months. But the whole recent Minnesota is the lead dog candidate coming out of this report that's been passed around and everybody keeps regurgitating it. I don't get a sense that Minnesota, the only weird thing I'd say that kind of makes me feel like Minnesota is maybe interested. And this is like, I'm not saying that the report is, that's been kicked around as valid necessarily, but why hasn't Minnesota shot it down? Because a lot of times teams will come out and say, no, we're not interested in that unless they really are exploring it. And again, I'm not saying Diana Rossini isn't onto something. I'm just asking the honest question. When's the last time she broke something first that you can remember? That was a monster piece of news like this. So, and on top of that, Aaron Rodgers, whenever someone says something very distinct and pinpoint, like accurate sounding about Aaron Rodgers, I question him immediately, because Aaron Rodgers has told us how many times now, no one's going to know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers because he won't tell anybody, and his inner circle will not talk, or they wouldn't be in his inner circle. So the fact that anybody says this is what's maybe happening, this is where Aaron Rodgers is at, they don't know anything. I back off immediately and say, wow, this person's throwing this out there like that. When we know for a fact Aaron Rodgers has told us, don't listen to anybody. And he's gotten mad at Schefter and Rappaport and said, you're lying. You're making up stuff. I never said that. I never told anybody that. So I still think Pittsburgh, as my opinion, is the landing spot. And I believe Pittsburgh, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, I believe it will be Russell Wilson. I believe that is their backup plan. And this report right here that just dropped about Russell Wilson said that Russell Wilson's ready to sign with the team. He's just awaiting the decision by the Steelers and Giants regarding Aaron Rodgers. And that says nothing about Minnesota in that report. But we'll see what happens. But Russell Wilson he's probably still at the facility in the bushes. I don't even think he ever left. He said he was going to go meet with other teams. I think Russell Wilson's just begging to go back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This report here's two different reports that are just referencing that report. One from Underdog, one from this report. So they're basically just saying the same thing. Everybody's just getting it from the originating source, which is, I believe, this ESPN. Yeah, from ESPN, Josina Anderson. So that's where that's coming from. Who knows if that's got any legs at all? We've got pretty much it. That's all there really was today news-wise. Thank you for the super chat or the gifted memberships, BBQ. You're the man. All right, Travis, what else you got? The phone lines are open, by the way.
Yeah, on the subject of a draft day trade, like those first three picks are going to determine a lot. Whether or not, two QBs go in the first few picks. And after that, dominoes will start falling into place, I think, because, if Hunter and Carter go off the board right away, well, that changes something. Whereas if one or no QBs go, that Ward's going in the top 30. But if another QB doesn't get picked, then other teams start thinking about, okay, do we jump up for a QB here? What do we do?
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers domino will affect where all of these teams go next, just because then Russell gets pulled. The Steelers, New York Giants no longer can go after Aaron Rodgers, so now they get aggressive trading to the one. Like Aaron Rodgers domino, that drop is going to affect everything. And according to Denny, Purdy. Is Purdy going to get his deal? Denny didn't seem to think so. Based on his voicemail. But, yeah, I don't know. And Milton getting traded to start somewhere is very dependent on where Aaron Rodgers goes, because and I don't know that I want to predict why that is or where, because we just don't really know, but I'm just merely pointing out the fact that Fields was going to be the Atlanta Falcons starter. He was going to be a starter for the Falcons. And then when they went with Kirk Cousins, there was no other landing spot for Fields, so he became a backup. So same thing could happen with Milton. Milton could be, and we don't know, could be lined up to go to like Cleveland or, New York. And if Aaron Rodgers went to New York, then all of a sudden Milton doesn't have a market, and then Milton stays a backup. Like it could be, it's the domino effect is crazy. And we'll see what happens. But, New Orleans is still in the mix at 9 for a QB, so they could take Dart. They could take Shador should he fall. I think the Raiders could still look at a quarterback, but I don't think they take one at 6. I think they move down or take one later. But I think Genty is we're hearing a little buzz about the Raiders really wanting Genty now. That's great news to hear. New England, Ted McMillan is my guess at 4. Cleveland, I think they should trade for Joe Milton and draft Travis Hunter, but we'll see. I think Travis Hunter feels like a lock to go inside the top 3. I just don't know how it's going to go. I don't know who's trading around. And again, Aaron Rodgers affects all of this. If the Giants took Aaron Rodgers, then all of a sudden the Giants are either trading down or they're drafting, who knows what they do at 3 at that point. That if they didn't move.
Not that they matter, because mock drafts are mock drafts, but there's a lot of mock drafts that have all of a sudden have Hunter dropping to 4 now. And it's like it changes week to week. So
all right, let me
really just
Hello?
Yeah, hang tight, Kyrie Boston. I'll be right with you, pal. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, actually, let me go to Kyrie real quick. Kyrie Boston, what do you got?
Oh, I was calling because I heard what you said about Joe Milton in the trade for George Pickens and stuff. I thought that would be a great idea.
Yeah, George Pickens would be
Yeah, I just
the top landing
couldn't
spots
have-
for him via trade for me. If I had to guess, I would say, damn, that's tough. I'd say, New England and LV make a ton of sense. Those would be probably my top two.
Yeah.
The next up would probably be, I don't think Dallas is going to pay him. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in Cooper Kupp level money, but they're not going to be interested in Pickens. I think Green Bay, yeah, Green Bay for sure. Denver is doing so well this offseason. They could do something crazy like that, but I don't know. Chargers, I don't think they pay him. I think they would want him, but I don't think they would want to pay him 28 million a year. Green Bay would pay him. They need a wide receiver one. So that would make some sense. Minnesota, no. KC, no. Eagles, no. Buffalo, I don't know. I don't think Buffalo. Maybe that's in their price range. This isn't a $33 million guy. This is a 27, 20.
Yeah.
Maybe 25 to 28. Maybe that is in the ballpark
awesome.
for Buffalo.
As long as they throw him the ball enough, they can keep him happy.
Yeah. Baltimore, no. Rams,
Buffalo.
no. Rams. Texans, maybe. Maybe. That pissed off Nico.
There, though?
What?
Is he happy there though? I agree, it's a good spot for him, but
he's happy there because he gets paid. You know what I mean? Like any team that said, "Hey George, we'll give you 27 million per year, 25 and a half, 26, 27," it doesn't matter. He's just look. This is his time to get that bag, and he's getting further away from it with the DK Metcalf contract and move. You know what I mean? If he goes out and has a bad year, and he's a free agent next year, but he has a horrible year, he's not going to get the same money.
Right, true.
So I think he's got to take advantage of this right now. So I don't think he'd care. Would he play well and be happy, like be as productive there? Probably not. Houston's really, I think, grabbing at straws to try and make sure that they don't lose momentum with Stroud, and they've got no other wide receiver. I could see him doing the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase attempt. You know what I mean? Like Houston seems like they could do that. New Orleans would be an awful place for him.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Boston, Kyrie. Kyrie Boston.
What's up with the wide receivers in Green Bay? They're not signed up. I don't know about him going to Green Bay.
I don't know why. Well, they don't have a one, and I think while I do believe that they're misusing their wide receiver room a little bit, the fact remains is they don't feel confident in their room. And even so that Jordan Love would say, we don't have a one. Jordan Love said that publicly. And that's kind of like, okay, well, they're clearly not viewing any one of their players that way. And given they took a step backwards, and I don't think, you got so much out of Josh Jacobs and your team still took a step backwards. And, I don't think anybody's expecting Green Bay to win the conference next year. Like that's how, whereas the year prior, people mentioned it, they kick it around as a sleeper. It's kind of like the Detroit Lions of last year. It's like, oh, Green Bay going to look good. They're going to step up. They got Josh Jacobs. So they have a window right now, even though you could look at them as a young team in some ways. They got a window that with Josh Jacobs and everything to where they could go after it right now, but they need a wide receiver one. I don't know that George Pickens would succeed the way they would want him to. I'm not the biggest George Pickens fan, so I don't know if it's the right move. I just know it would be perceived to be the right move, but whether it'll work out in Green Bay, I don't know, man. I think it would be okay. I don't think it'd be bad, but I don't know.
They would have a good opportunity.
Elite. What?
Trade him and get like a legit number 2 wide receiver back too. whether it's a Jacoby Myers or like a Wicks or a Dubs from Green Bay, and get a pick on top of it. That could work out.
Yeah. Tough to say. Yeah, those are all the spots. I can't
like
see.
Weapon. What you think?
Who? What?
Reed. You know, Reed. He was like their best wide receiver. I thought. But
I love Reed.
Think he's more like a weapon?
No, I mean,
he uses the ball too.
I think he's got the talent to be their number one. I just don't. For whatever reason, they don't agree. I don't know, bro. I love Jaden Reed. I thought Jaden Reed had the makings to be a top 12 wide receiver. I still think he does. You know, I think he does. I don't think they know what they got in him. I think that's a Deebo Samuel right there. I don't think they have a clue how to use him. Jaden Reed's a sleeping.
I think they misuse the kid.
He's a sleeping giant. But whatever the case may be, they need a one. They've said it. You know, to some degree. But I don't know. Jaden Reed could be. He could be so good somewhere else, man. Like put Jaden Reed in New England. You know that, like as a GM, that's how my mind works. I would go get Jaden Reed if I was the Washington Commanders. You know, that would be my Deebo Samuel replacement. You what, Travis?
Josh McDaniels loves the Jaden Reed type receivers too.
I mean, I just don't get how GMs aren't smarter than this. I'm not saying I'm not. I know sometimes I act like I know everything. I wouldn't be here talking about this for a living if I didn't feel confident in the way I assess this stuff. So, like, of course, you're gonna have a little bit of arrogance to your game, but I do believe I could take a team and I would go bargain shopping. I'd go find rags to riches players. Jaden Reed would be one of my top guys I go try and acquire. You put Jaden Reed on a team like the Washington Commanders, you know, you put Jaden Reed on a team, he doesn't have to be your one. I just think he's so talented. I could use him on any team with elite wide receivers. If I was the let's see here, let me comb through the teams and just tell you where Jaden Reed would explode. Like where he'd be like a near wide receiver one in some ways. I mean, look, I think, first of all, he would be phenomenal in a place where he's got an elite quarterback, you know, so Buffalo would probably be a place I just don't know if Buffalo seems like the kind of team that would misuse him. I don't know. But if I was Josh Allen, I would want Jaden Reed. Like that would be a great place for him. I just don't know if they use him right. Where he would be complimentary and amazing, Dallas. I'm not saying that would be the best fantasy, but I'm just saying he'd be great there. If Cam Ward went to Cleveland, put him in Cleveland. Cam Ward went to Tennessee, put him in Tennessee. I mean, wherever one of those rookies goes, he could be good. I think Jaden Reed in Denver would be pretty interesting. I think Jaden Reed in Carolina to be their number one, and I mean that could be good. I like Jaden Reed. It's a good question, bro. He's a guy I love last year. You what?
I'll be forgetting about Carolina. They're coming up. They got a pretty good young team. That quarterback.
They seem to be
pretty good this season.
They seem to be. Colts? No, not the Colts. Not until they get the quarterback situation on lock, bro. Look at Joshua Downs. He's so good. They don't, like, when AR5's in there, he doesn't get used. When he's not, then he does. I don't know. That wouldn't be the best place for him. Is A-Rod still on the beach? We don't know, bro. I have no idea. Justin, what else you got?
I mean, I don't really got much else, to be honest. Some I would say, like, an interesting comp for Jaden Reed if he did get traded. Think about, like, Tyler Lockett. And I mean that as a compliment to Jalen Reed because, like, Tyler Lockett had a lot of 1,000-yard seasons in a row, and he was just a really dynamic deep threat, you know?
Yeah.
He's more physical, too.
Yeah, I think that is a tough...
He has a little bit of running back to him.
That's a tough example, just because that guy's on his way out. So like trying to think of a now comp. I think Deebo Samuel prime, when you could say he's on his way out too, but like prime Deebo Samuel makes so much sense. And I know that he's smaller, but they used him like Deebo. There was a time where Jaden Reed looked like he was going to have 300-400 yards rushing a season and 2 or 3 touchdowns, and he could. He's had some moments. I think even if, like, again, being a GM, I think I would crush making these trades. If I'm the Bengals, I'd go get him right now. If I'm you put Jaden Reed on the Bengals as the third wide receiver playing that Yoshi Voss role, and you still have Yoshi Voss, but Jaden Reed would take this offense to another level. Even if he only had 800, 900 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns, 200 rushing, like 1,000 total yards and like 8 touchdowns, let's say. Like 800, 900 yards receiving. He would be dynamic. He would turn this offense into a totally unstoppable. I'm telling you, Jaden Reed in Cincinnati might be the most fun place for him to go. That would be crazy. Washington would be great too.
That is a really good one, sleeper.
Yeah, Washington would be fantastic. I'm not saying it's his best fantasy location, but teams would win because of it.
The offense would be unstoppable in Bengals. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I like Yoshi Voss, but I'm just saying
really
Reed's another level. And what would Reed cost in a trade?
There's one ball though.
Yeah. What would Reed cost in a trade?
You don't think I would take away from the other guys? Jamar Chase and T. Higgins?
I mean, I'm not really evaluating that in that comment, I guess, but
you can scheme him.
I would say
He had 50 catches and 800 yards last year. So you can do that again.
I would say he's just taking Yoshi Voss's role away and maybe adds some more rushing.
Yoshi Voss.
You got to remember it's only so much like water that you can put in all 3 cups, So if you take the 3rd cup away and put Jaden Reed down, like I don't think it's his cup's getting filled up to the point where we're stealing from Higgins and Jamar Chase. I just think he's such a dynamic player. You put him in Houston, that's pretty good too. As the number 2 there. I think that'd be pretty good. Again, not the best fantasy location for him, but that would be a great football move. I think being the number 1 for Shedeur or Cam would be really, really good. I think having him in New York with Cam or Shedeur would help that offense a lot. And I think to some degree, we got to worry about Neighbors getting doubled and triple teamed. Like, they got to have somebody else. Carolina would be good, as we mentioned.
I don't think he'd cost. I mean, he might cost, a 3rd? They used a 2nd rounder. They used a 50th pick in 2023.
I mean, that's where you say rags to
after
riches.
This year, he has 1 more year. So he has 2 years left. So.
I mean, that's where you say rags to riches, man. It's like one man's trash is another man's treasure, and Jaden Reed's just sitting there collecting cobwebs over in Green Bay. And I don't know how Jordan Love isn't using him. I don't know how the Green Bay Packers aren't scheming him differently. And maybe he'll take a big step forward this year. Who knows? But if they don't make any acquisitions, but we'll see. All right, boys. Anything else before
I had a quick question about
go ahead.
The Houston thing you said earlier. Tank Dell's out for the season, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, so yeah, that'd be a great spot for him.
Yeah, Tank Dell may
another wide receiver.
Tank Dell may never be the same, bro, ever.
Yeah.
He's probably done.
Man,
yeah, his knee was so mangled, bro. I believe he may have had the ACL surgery like this past couple of weeks, or they might still be waiting.
Yeah,
but he hasn't even had his. He either hadn't had his ACL surgery until this last couple of weeks, or he hasn't had it yet. That's how bad his knee was,
you
bro.
remind me of my other question, too, man, about Christian Watson.
What about him?
You think he'll ever come back? Is he cooked?
I mean...
Nobody's talking about Green Bay?
He's going to miss this year, too, right?
Yeah, I mean, he tore his ACL, right? So, ACL injuries with players that have hamstring problems to begin with. I mean, hamstring issues are the first thing you usually get when you come back your first year from an ACL tear. And ACL tears are. Let me throw up my. Hold on one second, guys. Let me hit my knee.
ACL stabilizes the knee, tearing it affects pivoting and quick stops. Grade 1, mild stretch, minor pain. Grade 2, partial tear, moderate pain. Grade 3, complete tear, significant instability. For grade 3 or sometimes grade 2 injuries, surgery is often needed. Healing time frames. Grade 1, a few weeks. Grade 2, a couple of months. Grade 3, 6 months or more.
I don't think he's definitely somebody that could bounce back, shorter than a year. But is he going to have hamstring issues? Maybe somehow, some way he makes his legs strong, equally strong for the very first time through the rehab. Who knows? But I would say that given his injury history, coming off an ACL tear with all the hamstring issues that are now tied to ACL recoveries because of compensation, he's probably never going to ever do well. So I would rule him out. I would rule him out. Him and Tank Dell are just write him off. It sucks, man. It is what it is. It's a business. We got to move on. Tank Dell had a great upside, and it just got ruined throughout the entirety of the year. CJ Stroud screwed all that up, and then
I drafted him on a lot of teams, man. Damn.
Yeah. I mean, he had tons of upside. I love Tank Dell.
Dell had surgery on the 5th, March 5th. He just had the surgery.
Did he? Okay, so yeah, I knew he was breaching that time frame of having it, and the reason he just had his ACL surgery, which means he's and his is so bad, he's 9 months away from being ready to even I think attempt to take any sort of strong cutting or even think about taking even some hits in shorts and pads. And the reason he waited until now to have his ACL surgery is his knee was so mangled, they had to do surgery after surgery to put his knee back together, let all that swelling heal because he tore the whole thing up. And now he's having his last surgery, the ACL surgery, which is a 6 to 9 month recovery. So he's unfortunately cooked this year. He's done this year. There's no Tank Dell.
He had his first surgery January 15th for the dislocated kneecap. And he also has tears in the ACL, LCL, MCL, and meniscus.
Yeah, meniscus is the worst too. Meniscus is the worst. When you have significant meniscus damage, your whole body's off kilter moving forward, and it causes the knee deterioration really quickly and everything. All right, hey, Boston Kyrie, we'll see you later, pal.
Oh, I can't say one more thing.
Last one.
So I appreciate you having the new sidekick on your show, Kruger.
Yeah.
Yo, he makes me laugh so hard, man.
Yeah, he likes being here.
Forth for him.
He likes being here.
Kruger, man.
All right, bro. We'll see you later.
All right, yo, good one. Appreciate it.
Justin, last final thoughts. Thank you, Kyrie.
So one thing I would say is I'm just happy Higgins and Jamar Chase got signed, so we don't gotta go into draft thinking about well, is this guy gonna hold out? Plus they're just really good players that are humble and shit. But that's all I got for Chase Smitty.
All right, man. We'll see you later. Yeah, I mean, on Underdog, you can take advantage of drafting a lot of the stuff we're talking about before the values climb, and T. Higgins is gonna climb a lot now that he's especially in best ball when people want to stack Jamar Chase and Burrow. A lot of the time, I've seen Burrow climb. I did 3 drafts last night. Bengals are so dumb, says Zeno. Call in, Zeno, and tell me why you think that. The Bengals are smart, bro. Bengals are geniuses. I don't know where you're getting that from. But I'll put your comment up here. You're happy. You're more than welcome to explain it. But I saw Joe Burrow. I did 3 drafts last night. Joe Burrow climbed to the 4th round in all 3 of them. I don't know if that's going to be a staple. That's a big sample. 3 straight drafts. He fell into the 4th round. But the thing about it is you're in best ball. He's going to have a higher value because of that desire to stack him. So anybody that drafts T. Higgins is going to want Burrow. Anybody that drafts Jamar Chase is going to want Burrow. And the same effect for Jamar Chase. You draft Jamar Chase at 1. T. Higgins is a natural cuff at the 2-3 turn at 24 and 25. So Higgins and Burrow are going to have a lot higher ADP than they really should in best ball. So best ball ADP sometimes isn't a good indicator of non-best ball ADP, and Burrow and Higgins will be exact examples of that. So they'll go a little higher than they should be going. But it's because you like to stack. Feel free to call in, Zeno, and you can make your debate. I'm sure you're making a very bland defensive debate. But the defense, they're going to get outscored. Anything else, Travis?
Yeah, just the other thing with Dell too is it was the same leg that he broke his leg the year before too. So
Yeah.
that leg is taking so much trauma. It's going to be tough.
Zeno, here's the phone line.
Like you said, like you said with Pickens, like I mean, if the Steelers thought that they could keep his head on straight and everything could work out, they would extend him like now and get it done. But he's going to want as much as DK in that situation. And then on top of it, if they take advantage and trade him now rather than wait, they can get something back, whether it's a really good pick or, like I said, one of these teams could give up a Romeo Doubs or Jacoby Myers, or that fits in the offense so much better. And at that point, then they have a really nice offense they're building. They can get another running back in, and obviously the quarterback.
Keeping Pickens keeping Pickens is a bad move for the Steelers.
Right.
If they're not going to pay him, there's no reason to keep him. There's no logic behind it. Zeno, here's the phone line if you want to talk about your Bengal prediction.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Dial in. I'm more than willing to hear a very one-sided, defensive, general, regurgitated, because other people say it. The defense. Yeah, I've seen so many bad takes on this Bengals situation that they're just so bad. They're so bad.
They're either going to sign Hendrickson, or they're going to trade him to a team that'll give him a decent pick. So
yeah, but it's just funny to see people say like, "This is a bad move. I wouldn't have done it. I would have done it." Like, it's such a weak, lazy take. It doesn't. I'm waiting for Zeno to call because I love to hear his rationale, because I can promise you that it has no legs. But I don't think he'll call.
The best
Nobody does.
Of it all, of when people constantly talk about like, oh, they're like you said, it's likely a defense where they talk about, oh, they got a crappy defense, whatever.
Yeah, it's usually just regurgitated. They heard it on a.
Like you've talked about a million times. Oh, Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell was the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
No one can say the Bengals made the wrong choice.
I know.
Even with Penei Sewell being good.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, Penei Sewell's got nothing on Jamar Chase and what he did for this offense and what he's doing for, it's so they're lazy takes. I'm still waiting. Zeno, are you calling in or what? You're so passionate about it. I'd love to have a conversation. Georgie, is this who's on the line here?
My name's Dominic. Last name's Georgie.
Dominic.
Go ahead.
What's up, my boy?
No, you're good. First time calling in. What's up, Smitty?
What's up? Are you? What's your name in the YouTube chat?
Tatered Sandwich.
Okay, Sandwich. What's up, my boy? What can I do for you?
Just calling in. What is this guy doing? What is his take, man?
Oh, which one?
The one that you're trying to get to call in.
Oh, Zeno. I don't know. He isn't
crazy.
I mean, I'm waiting for him. I'm not trying. I'm trying to be. Look, I'm trying to be polite here. I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be more agreeable on the phone line a little bit here or there, because everybody seems to have a problem when I scream and yell at people. So I'm trying to be agreeable, but I'm waiting for, if someone's got such a. Zeno says, "Nah, I'm not calling in." LOL. I didn't think so.
Of course he's not.
Because I'm going to tear your stance apart and rip it into shreds. Not you. I won't rip you into shreds, but I'll rip your take into shreds. I'm just so tired of lazy anti-Bengal takes. Let me tear Zeno's stance down just right now. The fact that people say things, hey, Kivo, don't call him a cow. Don't call people that. We don't need to be mean to people in the chat. Just because Zeno doesn't want to call in doesn't mean you have the right to say negative things to him. So you want to get your comments moderated by the mods, or even worse, getting put in timeout. Don't be attacking people. in the chat. You know, I still want Zeno to feel comfortable here just because he has a disagreeable take. It's fine. But let me tear it down. The Bengals have draft picks to replace defensive players or garner new defensive players. They have draft picks, 6, 7 picks in this draft to go get linemen, whatever they got to do. They also have multiple years to get it done. Okay, and when people say things like, oh, how are the Bengals going to win without the defense? How'd they go to a Super Bowl in 2022? And you can say, well, they had a good defense. Okay, so they can have a good defense now? I'm confused. They either are incapable of having a good defense in the next 3 or 4 years while T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are on these fresh new contracts. Not everything has to happen in 2025 in year 1. They could take 2 drafts to build up the defense and just beef up the line a little bit, coach it up and everything. But when people say things like, this is as if this year determines everything, as if taking T. Higgins, locking him down, locking Jamar Chase down, sacrificing, maybe, in their mind, I don't think they agree, but if your mind is correct, sacrificing the 2025 season, but building upon it, using it as a building block season, then guess what? They have the draft, the development of those players in the draft, the free agency. The Niners let go of half their team. There's still a lot of great players out there to be signed. And you use this free agency, which is still remaining, the draft, next year's free agency. That's only the second year, walking into the second year of T. Higgins' 4-year deal. You're walking into the second year of Jamar Chase's 5-year deal now. And you're what? What's your stance? This team went to the Super Bowl in 2022, and they had a bad defense according to everybody walking into that season. They had a top 10, top 12 defense at the end of the year because they played very well at the end of the year. They got coached up. They had a much better season on defense than people projected them to have. It's lazy. It's a lazy anti-Bengal take to suggest that this does anything but make this team ready to rumble, and now they just have to build up the pieces that aren't in place yet, which they can easily do. You take T. Higgins off the roster, now you got to build up the defense and the offense again. It makes no sense. And so what if they beat teams 50-48? Like that's what they did in 2022. Like, what are you talking about? It's lazy. Stop being lazy with the take. It's an anti-Bengal take is ridiculous. And my phone line's open. Feel free to dial in. Go ahead, Dominic. What else you got?
No, I agree. I mean, why are we going to break up the offense over defense? I mean, they got them for 4 or 5 years now. It doesn't have to happen this year, like you said. We got this draft. They can make it far this year. They got another draft next year. They got time. They got them locked in now.
Yeah.
They're good.
Just imagine thinking that you like this is where it ends. Imagine thinking that the Bengals, who just secured and locked up the offense entirely, imagine thinking that this is all they're going to have. Oh, they have a draft coming up? Oh, damn, I didn't think about that. Oh, they can still pick up guys in free agency, and there's a lot of good players that just got released just on the Niners roster alone. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, wait, we have more drafts to come? Damn, I forgot about that as well. Like, what is somebody's stance? It's anti-Bengal. You're obviously a hater of the Bengals. There's no logical argument here. And again, my phone line is wide open if you want to have a logical debate about it. Because the thing is, anybody hating and dropping negative comments about it over and over, they're not going to call in. I see Cruiser. You seem very anti-Bengal. Why don't you dial in? The Bengals defense is what carried Joe Burrow. Not a single TD in the fourth quarter, but go off, Smitty. No, bro. I'm waiting for you. Dial in. Please dial in.
Elite offensive players are just so much harder to find.
It's so bad. Hold on to that fluke run years ago. Oh.
Left tackle or a DB or a pass rusher. That's the only 3 spots that matter.
So now all of a sudden, the 2022 Super Bowl run where the Bengals won their division like I predicted and got made fun of and ripped on constantly for that take, was a Super Bowl contender like I predicted. They went to the Super Bowl. Jamar Chase was the pick over drafting a lineman, even the best lineman, Penei Sewell, in the draft. I was right on that one as well. I've been right on the Bengals every step of the way. But yet, all of a sudden, now that the Bengals went to the Super Bowl in 2022. That was a fluke run. We're going to take that out. And we're going to piecemeal this argument the best way we can. Cruiser, you're Cruiser, is that your name, Cruiser Q? Your defense isn't, you don't have a defense here.
In the whole, 44% of the cap and 3 players, I believe they actually saved money.
You don't got no one, Cruiser.
Cap.
You don't got no one. You're not helping. You're not helping Zeno. Zeno's gonna jump off this ship in a minute and jump over to this side and leave you by yourself. L fluke run years ago. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm gonna cherry pick Antonio Brown 2.0, George Pickens. Maybe, bro. But what way do you mean that? What way do you mean that? Zeno's coming over to the Bengal side. He ain't getting in your boat, Cruiser. He didn't want anything to do with you. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing of how out of touch this guy is. Because the defense is what carried you guys. Ha ha. Maybe that's why. Ha ha. Question mark. I'm all capital letters. The Bengals aren't my team. What are you talking about? You're not in a Bengals live stream, Cruiser. You clearly don't know what you're saying, but that's all right. What else did you hear that you're just repeating? Anyway, Travis, I'll see you later tonight.
Yeah, talk to you later.
All right, later. All right, pancake stack.
The stack above all stacks.
Drop it in the live chat. Drop your pancake. Drop your Burrow emoji. Drop your Jamar Chase emoji. Show the haters that don't know what they're talking about what time it is. People are getting burrowed left and right, and people are going to remember it. I do got to redo this. I'm probably not going to put George Pickens in all this because I'd have to redo everything. I'm probably going to put him in his own little rocket, zooming around in here. I'll probably put him in his own rocket just flying around. But I will redo it. Also redo the Aaron Rodgers animations. But I'm waiting for his landing spot.
Smitty, they've gone over this. Where would you put George Pickens? How do you feel about him? I still feel like, I don't know. I've never really been that big of a fan of him, and I'm still not that big of a fan. I don't feel like I'd draft him in my, what you would call a grandma league, redraft league, unless he's falling late. What do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't like George Pickens anywhere in my wide receiver 2 territory, and that's kind of where you got to draft him. So I normally don't own him at all, bro. I don't own him at all.
That's how I feel, because you have to get him where he'd be in that territory, and I just don't trust him there.
Yeah, I'm just not going to have him. I'm just not going to own him. I'd take him as wide receiver 3. Not in every draft either. That shows how much I doubt him. It's just a head case, It seems like a steal to be a wide receiver 3, but I can't trust him. I'd rather go in a different direction.
So I'm in 2 redraft, 2 main redraft leagues, and if I can't get him later than 3rd, I'm probably just not going to take him.
So
let somebody else take a risk.
Yeah, let's say like Travis's point, Pickens has to go somewhere else to want him. Let's say he stays where he is. I won't own Pickens probably on a single roster. I just won't.
Okay.
But
yeah,
if let's say Pickens goes to New England, I could see wanting him as a 3, but I just don't think I'll get him. So I'm probably just overall not going to own him. If he fell to me as a high-end wide receiver 3, I'd take a couple shots on it, but I wouldn't even saturate my team with him at that value. Like, let's say he did somehow have good value like that, I couldn't trust it. But I'd definitely take a couple shots as a wide receiver 3. Would I ever draft him as a wide receiver 2? Probably not. You know why? Because Rashee Rice is available for that. I'd take Rashee Rice all day long over George Pickens. I love drafting Rashee as my number 2. Other wide receivers, DK. I take DK in Pittsburgh and Pickens in New England. I'm taking DK every time. DK in Pittsburgh and Pickens in Pittsburgh. I'm taking DK every time. So DK is like my default. I take him over Pickens every time anyway.
I agree. It's just a feeling for me. Like, I'm from St. Louis, so like closest team for me is KC. So I don't have like, that hometown team anymore.
Yeah.
It's just basically good football players, good teams, and you're the most unbiased person I've found, and I'm pretty unbiased because I just like good football players on good teams. Who's going to do good for my fantasy? And I just don't have a good feeling about him.
Yeah. Bro, I pride myself on being unbiased, and what's funny is a lot of people think I'm biased because I dig in, but I don't ever dig in. The perception is I dig in. The thing is I'm still on the take. Like last year when it was Achane. Like a lot of people are like, Smitty, you're digging your heels in on Achane. He's gonna get hurt, and he was good, but now he's not that good, and the offense is limiting. I mean, finish. What did Achane finish? Number 4, I think, for running backs. Even with the disastrous situation that he dealt with, he was still number 4. But it's not me digging in. It's that I still believe the take, and when people are jumping off in droves, it makes me passionately say, okay, I got to sound the alarm. Like, we need to. It's not bias. It's never bias, man. The definition of being unbiased is when I pump up Kenneth Walker all year long, and then in the middle of the year when he's on fire. Not last year, but the year prior when he had, I think it was like 9 or 6, 7 touchdowns in 4 games or whatever it was. And I came into the live stream and I said, we got to trade him. I know I pumped him up all offseason, but this is fantasy, man. This is adjust and adapt, and this is how unbiased works,
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I've only played fantasy for like 4 years. I took second the last 2 years. I won this year. And one of the main reasons is listening to you, and I go from, I have these players that you're hyping up, and then you're like, oh, we got to trade them.
Yeah.
And I decide, like, okay, yeah, trade them, get good value for them, and it works out. And usually it does. You got to go with the talent. Not with, like, the situation matters, but also you got to take everything into account. Like,
yeah,
if they're good players and stuff is coming back around, it's going to come full circle.
Let me give you another example of not being biased. Is like, could Caleb be a top 12, top 10 fantasy QB this year? Sure. Just like Goff is not QB 7 in the National Football League. He's not. But could he produce that fantasy wise? Sure. So Caleb is somebody that I wouldn't want as my QB if I'm a GM. But is he set up enough to? And if the Bears are losing, can he, throw for a bunch of yards, get a lot of touchdowns? I mean, have those good third and fourth quarter games? Sure. And so do I think Caleb will ever earn the value that in the hype that he had? Hell no. Not even come close. But he could survive in this league for a while. That's the way. I mean, Goff is not a great quarterback, but Goff is he's been turned into such a good system guy for that Detroit system. They could win a Super Bowl with him. I'm not saying the Bears will win a Super Bowl. I'm merely just saying that there's recognizing what can be, and there's certain players that can perform a lot. I like Odunze a lot this year. We'll see where he goes. But another example of I think adjusting and adapting, like here's some things I missed. Like Mixon last year, if I could go back in time, my advice to people on Mixon would be draft him because he was a steal. Like you weren't overpaying for Mixon, but the upside was so good, you should have drafted him and then traded him like by week 8. So there's some advice like that we'll have this year that maybe I'm going to take it a little differently. Like the Derrick Henry, situation, I do believe Derrick Henry is going to drop off. But I do think there's a great scenario where you could draft him. He plays well for 4 weeks, and then you sell him earlier than you need to because you want to make sure you sell him before their signs. But you sell him in week 5 or 6 and get a good month out of him, a good 6 weeks out of him, a good 7 weeks out of him. So, yeah, being unbiased is important. You got to really step back and look at the situation. And as much as I love Kenneth Walker, I'm treading lightly on Kenneth Walker right now because, A, he's been getting injured and hasn't been delivering. And, B, I love Zach Charbonnet as much as Kenneth Walker. So Charbonnet costs you nothing. Kenneth Walker costs you a pretty high pick.
Mission detected at the front
So
door.
that's just the way. That's the way fantasy is. You got to take it. You got to take it honestly. All right, bro. We'll see you tonight. Later tonight, I'll go live.
All right. Thanks. See you.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back. Appreciate you all. And I'm live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday, live when big news breaks. See you all later. Drop your closed-minded Bengal takes in the comments.
Your Bijan card has been revealed.